We made it. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Marijuana Man here with From Under the Influence. And we certainly are today. Yeah, it took us a little while to pull it all together today. I had to hunt down a different computer. Mine died. So I got another one going here eventually, and now here we are. We didn't even have time to come up with a title for today's show. But it don't matter too much. Hope everybody's doing good out there. Can't see the chat today. And haven't really looked at too much cannabis news. A lot of news out there. Well, let's just have a look. Happy 420 wherever you are. I don't know what time it is, 422 maybe now. But let's see if I can get something going here. I would look up cannabis news. I do appreciate anyone who has stuck around for the last few minutes to catch us live. And yeah, it's crazy fun. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, we have cannabis news. Yeah, it's all the same. Stock wars. Stock wars. False test results. Lab shopping put cannabis consumers at risk. Let's see about that. That is out of the United States. Yeah, the testing of cannabis for, I don't know what they're testing for, but they just said it was contaminated. Yeah, I don't know. There is a big rush in the world to have everything listed on the outside of the package for everybody. The whole thing is being presented for newbies, people who never smoked cannabis before or have very little experience with it. However, those weren't necessarily the same group of people that were out advocating for cannabis to become legalized. We were kind of doing that so we could have it ourselves. So now all this nonsense is coming out about I've got to know what terpenes and what percentage of those terpenes are in my weed, because it's all about the terpenes, you know, not about the THC anymore. It's not about the CBD. They want to, I don't know, just rip cannabis apart and keep telling us that it's this, it's that. Leave it alone. Well, or go do that, but leave my weed alone. How about that? I don't need you all over it to tell me anything. I only consume this like I do, just like that. grind it up, and roll it into a paper and smoke it. So, what do I care? Really? No different than anything else. I don't care. I know how to use whatever I'm using. So, the rest of it, I don't even care about. I don't look at the fucking label on a can of soup to see what's in it. Well, maybe I do sometimes, but the nutritional value and shit like that, come on. You get those on Cheetos. You get that on shit that isn't even food. No one cares. No one needs it. No one wants it, but somebody's making a buck off providing it, aren't they? At every step of the way. Very little is known about terpenes, really. Like, really. How much could you possibly know about this? Oh, terpenes exist. We didn't know that until now. So they must be listed on the side of the label. It's the same with THC percentages and all this other nonsense. That nobody even understands the relationship between cannabis that has high THC, low THC, some THC, no THC. They don't know anything about it, really. They just know that it exists. And they've concocted some goofy math to explain it to us. When really the math doesn't make sense. But it is a law that they put it on the side of the package, for fuck's sakes. I don't care. We've been pretty happy having our weed come like this for all these years. Weed in a bag. Now, countless, look at all the articles I see written about cannabis these days are all written cannabis 101. Everything's 101. So they're not even including me in their article because I'm not 101 or 20. They should know that. And I'm certainly not alone out here in the world of cannabis consumers that know about cannabis, know a lot about cannabis, and can easily decide whether or not they would like to purchase it. One of the main reasons that they have so many numbers on the outside of the packaging is because they won't allow you to look at it. And they think that those numbers will replace your desire to take a look at it. But it's an odd world when it comes to the constant testing to keep me safe. No one has been harmed. So what? What does that mean? The methods by which cannabis has been produced over the years is, to a degree, it's frightening, but yet there seems to be no ill effect. I have not in my whole life, and I swear, okay, I'll swear, fuck. Not in my whole life have I heard of anyone being harmed by consuming cannabis, however they consumed it. So, what am I supposed to conclude from that? That it's harmful? And that it needs a bunch of restrictions? It needs to be analyzed constantly to keep me safe from it? The fact that we think that it's not harmful comes from being produced under the worst conditions you can fucking imagine. Everything. All the ways that people have grown weed and produced weed, and the stuff they've done to it, doesn't hurt anyone. What? If the weed had powdery mildew, I wouldn't buy it. Most people don't. Even if it did, apparently, it doesn't hurt you. I haven't heard it hurting anybody. So I don't know what to conclude here, other than they're just making this shit up, and everybody's going along with it. See, that's a bit of the problem here in the world, is that we've been forced to go along with stuff that isn't so, for other reasons having to do nothing with cannabis, right? All these years of prohibition have done that. They've skewed the whole scenario towards the idea that cannabis is expensive and that it's, that it will harm you. And that for some reason we should pay a tax. So it's all about the money, isn't it? Come on. It's all about the money. Always has been, always is going to be. So, here, let me turn the light up a bit. A little bit brighter. I got this computer's doing weird shit here in front of me. That's why I look like I'm getting darker and lighter and darker and lighter. Because it's doing that for some reason. But so I don't know what else is going on. This published as of today. We take a look at the two of the hottest pot stocks on major exchanges in the United States. Those being Aurora and Tilray. What the fuck? Why is that still going on? These people aren't hot pot stocks. They're on their fucking way out. And they're cold, useless pot stocks because they have never concerned themselves with the correct stock. Now, these people should have never been allowed to go public. And if they did, they should never have been allowed to use their potential production as leverage to get investors. Because without, they could have done some cursory examining of the whole thing. See, they did it all because they talked about what the black market was worth. They made up a number. They had to. They couldn't possibly know what the black market was worth. After all these years of cannabis, there's no way they know. But they used those numbers to decide what their potential sales could be. Potential sales could be. Not what they are, not what ground work had shown. They weren't even open. They weren't selling any weed. And it turns out they didn't sell very much. But their ability to sell a lot and produce a lot was there. in greenhouses across the land that they didn't use. So I'm not too sure that these people can be considered hot pot stocks. And they haven't been considered as high quality cannabis producers yet. And I'm not too sure why anyone would invest in a company or a business that hasn't shown a track record of success. But now they're all trading on the US exchange. Oh, and they'll go through the same fucking green rush because of all these states that have just recently legalized it for whatever purpose. So they're all going to do a big green rush on that. Even knowing and looking here to see what happened. But they won't, because that's the way they do business. They pretend that the other business doesn't exist. So they're doomed for failure, as far as I can tell. Not complete abject failure, because they're buying their way into it all, as everybody is. So, I don't know. It doesn't change week to week, that's for sure. And it's not changing a great deal, and hasn't. Except people go, oh, you know, the weed's getting better. Well, it should have been fucking good from the start. What's in it for me as a cannabis consumer to wait for these people to get up to speed? Got people out here that have been up to speed for fucking 40 years. So, and then when they do get up to speed, they want a ton of dough for it, even though it didn't cost them that much to produce it. They're wasting money as fast and as quickly as they possibly can. I guess if it is costing them that to produce, that they should be charging me these kind of prices. This nonsense about competing with the black market. Oh, you know, I can buy weed even cheaper, like 50 cents, 10 cents cheaper, for fuck's sakes, when it should be $4, $5 cheaper. They're not trying to compete with the black market. They're trying to ease it below so they can just report that. Having done little, having had no impact on the black market whatsoever. They don't give a fuck. They're getting to charge the same kind of high prices. They always have been. With even a lower overhead than you have. You've got to have it all tested. You got to have it all right? You got to have all the machines to process it because you're so big. You can't compete with the little guy who can do it in his garage or basement of his house. And very simply and straightforward. You don't need a whole lot, right? So competing with the black market is going to be very difficult, and they're not trying very hard to do that either, because they don't want to. They don't want to dip too far below the black market price, because they can use that as their kickoff point with their value priced weed. They made up this thing called value priced weed. When what the fuck is that? Who does that? Maybe you got your no-name stuff. I don't know. No name is a name. No different than Colgate or Palmolive. Well, wonder who owns No Name. What? But so you can see where they're headed with this. That they want to compete with the black market with something called value weed, which is reportedly not very good weed. And that's why it's low value. They decided that. The industry decided that, not the consumer. Nothing in it for the consumer at all, really, that I can see. What an odd scenario it is that they've created. The only people who actually wanted cannabis legalized were the people who used it. For God's sakes, there wasn't a. No, I'm sure there was some. I didn't see a lot of people who didn't use cannabis who were out demanding that prohibition end. So the only people who are out there crying for cannabis to be legalized was us, people who use cannabis, and we've used it for a long time. Had the opportunity to use it for a long time. So at the end of the day, when they did legalize it, they did not legalize it for those of us who asked for it to be legalized. It's as simple as that. They legalized it for people who would be new to it. And they decided to eradicate the culture that sprung up underneath their wicked prohibition. In face of it, the whole giant industry of cannabis culture sprang up underneath one of the harshest prohibitions there's ever been. I'm not too sure how that happened, but it did. I tend to think it happened because people like cannabis and want cannabis. Otherwise, why would they do it? And for all intents and purposes, it became an industry where you could make a lot of money, mostly because it was illegal. So, I don't know. It wasn't legalized for the people who actually use it, which is the strangest thing. So, they wanted to start from square one. They had this whole agenda. Nobody asked for this. There's no fucking way. They did a survey across Canada, the task force, when they were putting it all together. There's not a chance that this is a scenario that anyone asked for. Nobody. And the only people, if they did, would be non-cannabis consumers. Why they had a voice is beyond me. I don't care what. You don't use cannabis, shut the fuck up. How about that? So it's odd to me too that would be the point of view that would be adopted. See, one of the main problems too with us cannabis consumers, because there's not that many of us really. When it comes right down to it, we don't represent too much of the population. So nobody gives a fuck about us. When it comes right down to it, easily overpowered by the majority of the people who will go, oh, we think it's dangerous. You told us it's dangerous for our whole life. So it's dangerous and it needs to be completely restricted. No, I can't imagine anybody said it needs to be taxed. Who said that? No cannabis consumer said it needs to be taxed. Cannabis consumers would suggest that it's harmless and needs very few regulations. And that's probably what we all said, but nobody gives a fuck at the end of the day because they had this agenda, evidently. They were going to do it this way, and it didn't really matter what you said in the little questionnaire. It was all a stupid questionnaire that was leading you always to the harm element. Always, always, always reinforcing the harm element, the danger. the whole step of the way when they ask their questions. So that's all they were trying to do there. Continue to instill the idea that cannabis is somehow dangerous and needs this kind of oversight. So it's fairly frustrating, I have to say. So the casual user is happy because they don't care. They're used to paying this kind of money. And you shouldn't. You should rise up against that before they get it in place here that everybody's okay with it. Really. You know, I've seen astronomical amounts being asked for weed at legal dispensaries. And in the comments, somebody would say, well, it better be fucking fire if it's that much. You go, no, don't think of it like that. It should be fire at the cheapest fucking price. Why not? Why aren't you demanding that? Don't say, hey, I'll pay 12 bucks a gram or more if it's good. We only paid that kind of money if it's the only choice you had. Don't you get that? We deserve to be treated better than that, don't you think? In terms of just being a regular consumer of stuff? So, I don't know where it's all going to end up. You know, it's just going to mosey on like this. And every change that anyone is about to lobby for within the industry, I believe, will be only to benefit themselves, the industry, not you and me, the consumer. Right? It doesn't matter to me whether they change the packaging because it's not that good a weed. At least, how would I know? I've never purchased it. And I don't know. It's difficult for me to even want to. I don't want to give them the tax. That needs to be changed. They don't deserve it. Like really, it's just they just said to the cannabis consumer, fuck you. We're not giving you anything. We're not going to give you anything about this substance that you like. Because we showed them, we were the only people who actually were showing them all those years. We showed them the weed. We showed how we enjoy it and like it and appreciate it and want to look at it and smell it and touch it. Right? They don't go jamming your hand into a bag of weed in the black market either. You either ask permission or somebody pulls out a bud that you can inspect and look at. Simple as that. Cannabis. It's a stupid plant. Dried up looks like that. Did you know it looked like that when it was dried up? So they all have an inherent refusal to look at the plant itself and talk about the plant itself. We do to ad nauseum, but we always have because we like cannabis. We're the ones that like cannabis, the consumers of cannabis. Don't you want to appeal to us in any way? Are you ever going to show that you give a fuck about me? You're asking me to spend my money. You're actually forcing me to spend my money. It's the same fucking thing as prohibition. For me, it's exactly the same thing. You have no choice. You have no choice as the consumer of cannabis. When it was illegal, you had no choice but to buy it from that guy. And you only bought what he had. Maybe you had choice of two guys, but you still only bought what they had. Good or bad, didn't matter. Now, you're being forced again by legalization. They say if you want legal marijuana, you have to shop at this shop. You must, under threat of prison. You must shop here. So, same rules apply when you must shop somewhere, is that the prices stay really high. Quality doesn't matter. Not important. You are forced to buy it if you want to play along. So that's unfortunate, I think, for the consumer to be forced at every turn here to have cannabis the way somebody else would like it to be. Black market was lots of times not good quality, all the time too high priced. So cannabis doesn't have to be like that. They should have spent time learning a little bit about it. But there is, like, it's just the most bizarre thing to me, this little plant and how we have treated it and what it has become to us. Everybody's talking about uniformity. It has to be uniform so I can count on it doing its part. Like, really? Come on. Making a little too much of that, I think. Cannabis has always worked. I've had thousands of people sit in front of me and ask me to provide them with something that will be medicinal for them. And you go, well, is there any cannabis that was well produced that didn't work for you? And they went, no. It's not a wildly strong substance here. It's pretty delicate when it comes to the world of substances. So the impact that it has on everybody is because of the cannabis, not because of the fucking strain or the terpene percentages, or it's just cannabis. No, there's no way that people can reproduce all this shit. There's just no way. I've been in this industry a very long time, and I'll tell you, I have not met two growers that grow the same. Not two. Out of all the potential growers that there are, they all do it different. And the results are all different. What? There's no uniformity. They don't all look like fucking green peppers. Because they all do it differently. I imagine people who grow green peppers do the same as the other guy. And as cheaply as possible. Not cannabis growers. We never ever were schooled to do it as cheap as possible. We cheaped out on a lot of stuff. Right? The containers, even the soil, but well, we always overfed, put as much food, and we still do, jam as much food at these plants as they can take without becoming toxic. And as a consumer, I probably wouldn't know the difference. And then flush at the end of the it's so silly. The only reason we flush is because we overfed. But cannabis has been grown by these people separately forever. Everybody grew it just based on what they had. and couldn't talk to anybody, so he just did it to varying degrees of success. So that's interesting when it comes to the cultivation of a cash crop here, as far as I can tell. Wheat farmers aren't like that. They all go to the co-op and get the same seed as everybody else did because that's the one that works. They go with what has worked because they know, as opposed to, so you can grow weed, you can grow fantastic looking, tasting, and acting cannabis in so many different ways, evidently, because everybody does it different. Huh. I don't see, I can't imagine how different you can possibly be, as different as we have with growing this plant indoors too. It's been remarkable how this plant has survived. Not all of them did, but so there is no uniformity in that respect. It's how this is produced. It's where it's produced. It's the conditions under which it was produced that determines the outcome. Simple as that. Now, I'm not too sure they even know that because they don't. They got a guy who's doing it his way. Aurora's got got guys that are doing it their way. They haven't even taken the time to look at cannabis because it was that way under prohibition. Even in the worst of conditions, we were still able to produce some pretty fucking wild cannabis. Now, they're having a lot of trouble translating that over the amount that they want to produce in vast greenhouse gardens. So the conditions in Leamington, Ontario are quite different from those in British Columbia. You don't think that's going to play a role in this? You've got to get your air from somewhere. If it's different, then it's different. So, hopefully they'll get rid of all these greenhouses and get growing some good indoor weed here. And they can fine tune that to get it down to a price that is respectable for the consumer. So, it never ceases to amaze me when it comes to cannabis. You know, what the fuck? How did I get all wrapped up in this shit? Why is this going on for so long? Like, how wicked. It has to be wicked to go on this long. So, yeah, when it comes to the world, it's fucked right now. Yeah, they're going berserk out there still. It's still going berserk. So I try to stay under the radar. Try not to get hit by anything flying by. But yeah, I don't know where it's all going to end up. You never know. Never knew any of this was coming, so I have no clue what's coming. But conspiracy theories and everybody's opinion. I feel that's going to continue. So I don't know. This virus stuff is fairly annoying gotta say, if we're tired of this style of dealing with stuff here. See, I don't know. We got tricked into this fucking shit early on. I don't know, tricked, but conditioned to go along with whatever. So you can see out there in the world that everybody's wearing masks. Everybody. Not everyone, but lots of people where they didn't before. Right? And then there's lots of people that aren't. Some stores you go into, you have to have a mask. Other stores, no. And you go, I don't get it. What's the difference? So, I don't know. They better not be playing this. If they're playing this, they will burn down the fucking place. Come on. Don't want to be tricked into nothing. So, if you did trick us and it was all for your money, okay, you got it. How much more can you possibly get? You want it all? You're gonna take it all now? Like every fucking dime, and then what? What's the plan then? So I don't know whether or not it's the folly of politicians or the taking advantage of a scenario like they're quite likely to be doing. See how that all plays out. So I don't know what the heck's going on. It has changed a lot and continues to change and continues to get worse according to them. And I don't know. So what else is going on? Oh yeah, Trump. The guy just won't give up. Well, and I don't care one way or another. I don't live in the United States, so it doesn't affect me directly. Never has. Indirectly, I suppose, in some ways, but no president in my whole lifetime has had any impact on me. So they have impact, I suppose, on our government to do stuff, but it's just entertainment from my point of view. What's going to happen next? I don't see it as doomsday. These people are just wicked fucking motherfuckers. And they all are. It's not like our government's any better or any different. They're just not as goofy and overt. So we shall see. But I think Biden he's probably the winner, I would think, and it will go on from there. They're not gonna, who knows? Like I say, didn't see that coming either, so don't know what's coming next. So we'll have to see about all of that. But for now, smoking reasonably good weed. And working a bit over at the stock market. That's in the shop that I used to have, 3175 West Broadway. It's open every day from noon till 8 o'clock. Come on down and purchase cannabis. And it's indigenous owned and presented on unceded territory here in Vancouver. And that's the way it should be. Indigenous people should have an opportunity to make their own rules around such things. So you would be supporting that as well as the way that cannabis should be presented in our world. It's different these days with the COVIDs, but not like we can let you sniff the jar. But we show you the weed and we know our way around it. But yeah, so come on down anytime. Wear a mask though, because we're keeping it at bay, and we'll be there. Some good cannabis too, always. So it's fun. Except you gotta wear a mask, and it's difficult to make jokes, quite frankly. Not that easy. You gotta be really fucking loud and fairly concise with your jokery, because you can't use facial expressions too much. People actually kind of know what you mean when they can see your mouth. So that's a little tricky, but yeah, keeping it as real as we can. What else is going on in the news? So, given that we just saw that article on talking about the two hottest pot stocks, Aurora. Here's what they said. Here's another one about Aurora. Aurora is raising cash by selling more shares. Its stock is plunging. So it gets weird. And that's all that's really gone on with cannabis here in Canada is this run to the stock market, and it's all being presented back to everyone that way now. It's all about to the stock market and how that's doing, as opposed to what the cannabis consumer would like. I haven't seen any consumer articles whatsoever, really. Nobody's gone and talked to anybody who smokes weed. They've only talked about the numbers, the location. A store is going to open. This store is going to be here. They might talk to somebody coming out of that store, going whatever, but there is no consumer story because there are no consumers yet, I guess, because they're all newbies. They don't have a fucking clue. And they don't want to talk to us because of what we'll say. Weird, eh? So it's an odd way to approach a substance in a marketplace. So we'll have to see. I think eventually you would have to think that somebody's going to say, hey, this is fucking stupid. But I thought that for a long time. But I don't like the idea of our culture being jammed away from us. Like, what the fuck? Again, I wonder how I even got here involved in all this shit. It just is so unusual around this planet that you would want to eradicate the culture that went before it, before your day of legalization. It's I don't know, it's fucked. I don't like the idea of these stores being presented as just the only thing cannabis about them might be their name. And that's about it. And they'll hawk that relentlessly with merch. It's all about the merch. Probably make as much on merch as you do on the weed. No, I don't know how it all works. But I don't know. This seems boring, right? Everybody's got to take a course to work in a store. It's ludicrous what you have to go through for anyone to have a store or manage a store or work in a store. Are you fucking kidding me? What is the evidence that would suggest that you need any of this fucking this massive background check? What the fuck? Who has to go through that for anything? To sell anything? No one. Unless you want to sell bullets. I bet you have to go through guns. Some sort of background check. But no, cannabis. Eh? What the fuck is that? Every single employee across the land has had to go through this to prove something to someone about it. Because cannabis. It's cannabis. It's not alcohol. It's not cigarettes. It's cannabis. You know what background check did the guy down the street selling smokes have to go through? To sell smokes? None. The guy selling booze right next to him? None. What? So do they teach them at these little courses that they have to take? They teach them the rules. Enforce the rules. The rules, the rules, the rules. That's it. That's all. Don't be telling people that cannabis is good for them. And I actually think it is. I think it is good. And I would happily tell that to anyone. What's wrong with that? My vast experience with cannabis would suggest that it is, so I have concluded that it is. What about that? How come I don't get to, in my whole fucking life, ever get to come at it from that point of view? We're always forced, again, we're always forced to go along with their position, which is clearly not correct. Again, how in the fuck did we get into this? Why is their position not correct? Am I fucking nuts? Am I insane to think that their position? I don't know. I can only use my personal experience as knowledge. That's where knowledge is. So, but there's too few of us, right? Cannabis consumers are just not big enough. They made up the fictitious numbers to describe what the black market is worth based on inflated prices so they could sell this other industry, right? So they say that the black market's worth X number of billions of dollars without knowing that, and use that to promote their new business. They go, if it's worth that much, then that should be transferable to the legal market. Makes perfect sense. On paper, on numbers, and that's how they sold their investors, right? And they had to have come at it from that point of view. How could they estimate a marketplace? Because they were all merely estimating a marketplace to sell this. because they never tried it or did it ever before. And then that's how they decided to do it. They don't get to do that with other industries. New industries don't pop up out of fucking nowhere. They don't just get consumed into regular business regulation, right? Not this wild over-regulation because they could. That's the only reason it exists, is because they can do it in this instance. It's fucked. Don't know how to get out from under it. Really. So, the only thing I could see is to expand the black market, make that thrive as much as possible. They start opening shops, as many as possible. Fuck them. Take it over again. This is all you can do, really. Worked before. But I don't know. Many people are prepared to go along with it. Play it out. I don't know why. It makes no sense to me to go along with the scheme. It would be me who was collecting the tax that I don't believe should exist. It would be me who would have to not be able to talk about cannabis. Well, all hidden away in little boxes. So no celebration of cannabis. Can't make a store look like that. If you want to make it look like a diamond. That's how sad it is that they're forced or feel forced to create a store that is not a store of their creation to cover for the fact that they are a cannabis store. I'll pretend to be a record store. Huh. What an odd concept. Really. For any industry, I've never seen another industry do that ever. Pretend to be a different type of store. Unless they were in the illegal store. Right? Pretend to be one thing in the front and doing something else at the left. And that's kind of what they want here with this nonsense. And it's even, they go so far with the regulations that even as an adult who is fully legal to come into that store, they're not allowed to make it look like a cannabis store on the inside. I can appreciate and at least understand the kids no flashy cannabis stuff outside. But that, in fact, is the only place that you can do any of it. You can have your name out there, you can have your cannabis leaf. Maybe. Can you have a cannabis leaf? I don't know. Apparently not on the inside. Not too much. So, what gives with that? Like, I'm an adult. And you're actually thinking about the cannabis consumer in this respect? I don't think so. It is to eradicate that culture. And that's fucked. If they're trying and wanting to do that, why? They haven't ever talked about it. No one's talked about it. Right? Because they're not talking to the consumer of cannabis. So I don't know. That's the way it goes in the world. So until they want to acknowledge that the cannabis culture exists and that we'd like to be catered to, let alone penalized for wanting cannabis. Always penalized. Like, what did we ever do? Like, what did cannabis ever do to the world to deserve this kind of treatment? Nothing. But you only know that if you look at cannabis. So, fuck them for not looking at cannabis. And I also find it quite odd that in this world where they actually said, hey, we're going to legalize cannabis. You go, well, wait a second. You said this was dangerous. Don't you think you should explain the danger that I'm faced with to warrant these kind of regulations? But they didn't have to do that. I don't, because they had a chance not to, I guess. They've never come across anything like cannabis. You don't know what the fuck to do with it other than try to take it over and make as much money as they possibly can. I think pretty sure that's the plan. Which is the way any business world operates, I suppose. But cannabis is unique in that the price that we pay is artificially concocted, and that was done so under prohibition. So that should not be the measure of what we are to pay now. It should not. We should get a fair shake here. What the fuck? We've overpaid for cannabis because it was illegal our whole lives. We should not be asked to continue to be overcharged for it. So, if it is costing this much to produce the cannabis, you don't have a fucking clue what you're doing. You're doing it wrong and wasting as much money as you can along the way, probably. So, interesting. Yeah, I wish I could see some of the chat, but I could not. So maybe. Well, so I don't know how it all plays out really in the scheme of things. I see how things go. People who would get involved in the legal industry who at one time cried out quite loudly against this kind of industry. Well, whatever. But they decide to join. But I don't know. I find it a little odd that they use and are so willing and wanting to use their activism as some sort of, I guess, reason to shop at my shop that they did this. It was they who are responsible for this fucking mess that we're in. I guess is what they're saying. Sorry. But it's not that great. Defend it all you want, but it's not very good. So they are willing to collect the tax and enforce the tax upon us, the price upon us, the lack of culture upon us. they're willing to do that. And so then they talk of the legacy market, legacy they call it, being, I don't know, something. How that all plays into the mix, but no, it's all about that. No, I don't know, friendly stranger in Toronto. What? Well, they've had a long time quarrel with cannabis culture over their usage of the term cannabis culture. But at any rate, they entered into the retail market. I guess they got a few locations somehow figured out. Went public, of course, to raise all sorts of dough to help them get as many shops as they could. And then utilizing their background in activism and their long-standing store in the community. A store which existed based on consumers as opposed to them. People like and want cannabis. So, but at any rate, they were certainly brave enough to be out there and about there. And utilize this pretty much in their branding, if you will, and then sold out. A couple of weeks ago, they sold the whole shebang to, I don't know, Fire and Flower, who ain't got no cred at all. Credit. But, so, like, I suppose this is what most are planning on doing, is potentially being able to sell out for, while the getting out's getting good, right? So there's too many stores that won't happen anymore. But so now what? Fire and Flower's got more stores than anybody else. Also, it's all the same fucking weed. I don't give a fuck about your store. I haven't figured that out yet. Right? I don't care. It's an antiseptic environment having nothing to do with cannabis in the first place. So I'm walking right through that to the cannabis. Why do you think people are going to your store? Because of the cannabis. And if it's not that good and overpriced, so I don't know. So who knows what? But at any rate, I hope people are staying happy and healthy out there and enjoying. Some places it's really winter. It's blowing hard in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Big blizzards. It's November, for fuck's sake. So we'll see what happens this year. Who knows? Who knows? But I do hope you're staying safe and healthy. And I appreciate you tuning in today. Sorry about the little bit of lateness, but you know what late people say, better late than never. Oh, is that a threat? But anyway, I do appreciate you tuning in and check out all the shows here on Pot TV. Come on down to the block. Visit the lounge. I don't know what they're doing. I've lost track now. But the lounge is open. And the store downstairs on the main floor is open, and you can still shop there for all your cannabis needs. And appreciate Anil for scrambling and getting this all together for me today. And I'll say until the next time you come to our castle. I'm Marijuana Man. Peace.